The storm had been raging for hours, but Ethan hardly noticed. He was too busy running. His shoes slapped against the wet pavement, his breath came in ragged gasps, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. Somewhere out there in the brutal rain was a girl no one else cared about. A girl who didn't even know someone was searching for her. He had to find her before it was too late. How did it come to this? Just 2 days ago, Ethan's life was simple, comfortable, safe. He was the son of Richard Hale, the Richard Hale, a powerful real estate mogul, a man who could buy entire city blocks with a single signature. Ethan's future was practically gift, wrapped the family business, the wealth, the connections. But then he saw her. She was sitting on the curb outside a coffee shop, drenched from the morning drizzle, holding a cardboard sign that simply read, "Please help me find my sister." Ethan had walked past 100 homeless people in his life. He had learned, like everyone else, to look away, to keep moving. But this time, something stopped him. Maybe it was the way her hands trembled, or the raw panic in her voice as she begged passers-by to read her sign. Maybe it was something else, something he couldn't explain. He turned back. "Hey, are you okay?" His voice sounded awkward even to himself. The girl blinked up at him, startled. She was young, maybe 15, with rain-matted hair clinging to her face. "My sister," she whispered. "I can't find her. Please, I just need help." Ethan hesitated. He glanced around. People were ignoring them, stepping around them like they were invisible. "What's your name?" he asked, lowering himself to her level. "Leela. And your sister?" "Emily. She's 8. She went missing from the shelter 2 nights ago. No one's helping me. No one cares." Something cracked inside Ethan. He didn't know this girl. He didn't owe her anything. But in that moment, walking away wasn't an option. He offered her his umbrella, shielding her from the rain. "Okay, Lila, I'll help you." She looked at him like no one ever had before, with a flicker of hope. Over the next 48 hours, Ethan's life unraveled. When he asked his father for help, Richard Hale's reaction was cold and dismissive. "Do you know how many lost kids there are in this city? It's not our problem. Let the police handle it." "But the police won't help her," Ethan protested. "She's homeless. They won't even file a report." "Exactly," his father snapped. "She's a nobody." Ethan stared at the man he'd admired his entire life and felt something twist inside his chest. For the first time, he realized that his father's success was built on walls. Walls that kept people like Leela out. When Ethan refused to let it go, his father issued an ultimatum. "Walk away from this, or walk away from me." Ethan didn't flinch. He walked. The search wasn't easy. Lila only had fragments, places where Emily might have gone, people she might have spoken to. The shelters turned them away. The streets were dangerous. Ethan had to bribe, beg, and sometimes fight just to get scraps of information. But he didn't stop. He slept in his car. He ignored his phone as the missed calls from his father stacked up. He gave Leela his jacket, bought her meals, listened to her stories. She told him about nights sleeping under bridges, about the cold that sank into her bones, about the constant fear. And in return, she asked him something no one had ever asked. "Why are you doing this for me?" Ethan had no answer. He just knew he couldn't leave her alone. They grew closer. They weren't just searching anymore. They were surviving together. On the 3rd night, they got a break. A boy from an abandoned building said he'd seen a little girl matching Emily's description being lured away by a man offering food. The description chilled Ethan, a man known on the streets for preying on kids. There was no time to lose. That's how Ethan ended up running through the rain-soaked streets, following leads that led him to an old warehouse on the edge of the city. Inside, he found Emily, frightened but alive. He pulled her into his arms as tears mixed with rain on his face. Leela collapsed beside them, sobbing uncontrollably, clutching her sister as if she would never let go. But before they could leave, the man who had taken Emily returned. He wasn't alone. Ethan faced them. 2 grown men with bad intentions, armed with nothing but his resolve. For a terrifying moment he thought this was how his story would end, but he stood his ground. "You're not taking them," he said, voice steady despite the fear roaring inside him. The men laughed, amused by his bravery. One lunged toward Ethan, shoving him hard. He hit the ground, pain shooting up his ribs. But then, something unexpected. Police sirens. Richard Hale had called the police, not because he wanted to help, because deep down he'd been tracking Ethan, trying to stop him from ruining the family name. When the officers stormed the building, Ethan thought he would be dragged home in disgrace. Instead, the police arrested the 2 men and took statements from Leela and Emily. It was over. The girls were safe. But Ethan's battle wasn't. His father was waiting outside. "You've made a public spectacle of yourself," Richard hissed, barely controlling his anger. "You've jeopardized our family's reputation." "I saved a life," Ethan shot back. "1 life, and you've cost yourself everything." Ethan squared his shoulders. "Then I'll start over." He turned to walk away. But then his father called out, voice softer. "Wait." There was a strange look in Richard's eyes, a memory surfacing. "When I was your age," Richard began, almost to himself, "I knew a girl. Homeless, just like her." Ethan paused, heart thudding. "She used to sit outside my mother's shop. I never helped her. I still remember her face. Sometimes I still see it in my dreams." His voice cracked, a rare thing. "I always told myself I couldn't have changed anything, but maybe I could have." For a long moment they said nothing. Rain pattered softly around them. Then Richard did something Ethan never expected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "There's a woman I know who runs a shelter. She can help the girls. I'll make the call." Ethan hesitated, unsure if this was a trap. "It's not charity," his father added. "It's long overdue." In the weeks that followed, Ethan helped Leela and Emily settle into the shelter. He visited them often, helped Emily enroll in school, took Leela to apply for jobs. They began to rebuild. But it wasn't just them. Richard Hale quietly began funding shelters across the city. He never spoke of it publicly. It wasn't for reputation anymore. It was for the girl he had left behind all those years ago. Ethan never fully reconciled with his father. Some wounds don't heal overnight, but they began to speak again, not as a businessman and his successor, but as two flawed men trying to do a little more good. One evening, as Ethan was walking Emily and Lila home from the park, Emily slipped her small hand into his. "You saved me," she said simply. Ethan smiled. "No, your sister saved you. I just got lucky enough to help." But deep down he knew the truth. They had saved each other. And sometimes, risking everything is exactly what it takes to find the pieces of yourself you didn't know were missing. Morale in a world that teaches us to look away. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is to stop, to care, and to risk everything for someone society has forgotten. Because in saving others, we often find what's worth saving in ourselves.